Have you ever noticed that the more you try to get a woman's attention, the less interested she sometimes seems to become? You text first, you call first, you plan everything. You make yourself available whenever she wants you. You give her compliments, attention, reassurance, and endless opportunities to choose you. And yet, somehow, the more effort you put in, the more distant she becomes. Then one day, you stop. You don't argue, you don't complain, you don't announce that you're walking away. You simply stop chasing. And suddenly something changes. She notices the silence. She notices the missing messages. She notices that you're no longer waiting around for her attention. And perhaps for the first time, she begins asking herself a question she never expected to ask. Why isn't he chasing me anymore? But here's the part most men misunderstand. The power of indifference isn't about playing hard to get. It isn't about pretending you don't care. And it certainly isn't about manipulating a woman into becoming obsessed with you. The real power comes from something much deeper. You stop making another person the center of your life. You stop giving away your time simply because you're afraid of losing her. You stop measuring your worth by her responses. And you start putting your attention back where it belongs, on yourself, your goals, your purpose, and your self-respect. That is when the entire dynamic can begin to change. 1. The first shock. She notices the difference. When a woman becomes accustomed to receiving your attention, she develops expectations. She knows you'll probably text. She knows you'll probably respond quickly. She knows you'll make the plans. She knows you'll be there if she suddenly wants your attention. And because your behavior is predictable, she doesn't have to think much about it. Your attention becomes normal, almost invisible. This is a basic human tendency. When something is constantly available, we can begin taking it for granted. But when that pattern suddenly changes, our attention naturally returns to it. That's why the first stage of pulling back can create a psychological shock. She doesn't necessarily need a dramatic conversation to realize something has changed. Maybe your responses aren't instant anymore. Maybe you're not initiating every conversation. Maybe you don't rearrange your entire schedule whenever she becomes available. Maybe you're simply more focused on your own life. The change can be subtle, but the message is powerful. Your life no longer revolves around getting her attention, and that can create curiosity. She may begin wondering, what's different? Why isn't he responding the way he used to? Is he losing interest? Has something changed in his life? The important thing is that you don't create fake mystery. You simply allow your life to exist beyond her. 2. The attention rebound. Sometimes, after noticing that you've pulled back, she may become more attentive. A woman who previously took hours to reply might suddenly initiate conversations. She might send a random message. She might bring up an old memory. She might become warmer. She might suddenly seem more interested in what you're doing. And this is where many men make a huge mistake. They interpret one small sign of attention as proof that everything has changed. They immediately rush back. Long messages, instant replies, constant availability. They return to exactly the behavior they were trying to escape. And what happens? The dynamic returns to normal. She gets the reassurance she was looking for. She discovers that you are still immediately available, and the mystery disappears. So if she becomes warmer, don't become desperate. You don't need to become cold either. Just stay balanced, be friendly, be respectful, but continue living your life. Because the purpose of pulling back isn't to make her chase you. The purpose is to stop chasing someone who wasn't meeting you halfway. 3. The curiosity phase. Once the old pattern has been broken, curiosity can begin. This is one of the most interesting parts of the dynamic. Before, she knew exactly where you stood. She knew you liked her. She knew you wanted her attention. She knew you would probably continue pursuing her. But now, she isn't completely sure. And uncertainty can create curiosity. She may start asking herself, why is he different? Did he meet someone? Is he moving on? Has he finally lost interest? Is he focusing on something else? Notice something important here. You don't need to create jealousy. You don't need to post pictures with another woman. You don't need to pretend you're suddenly living some incredible life. Those are games. Real confidence is much quieter. You simply become genuinely busy building your own life. Work on your career, improve your health, Spend time with friends, develop your skills, pursue your hobbies, set goals. And when you're genuinely focused on your own path, you naturally become less predictable because you're no longer organizing your life around someone else's attention. That's real mystery. Not hiding, not manipulation, just having a life of your own. 4. The jealousy trap. Sometimes, when a woman notices that your attention has shifted, she may make subtle comments. She might jokingly ask, "So, are you too busy for me now?" Or, "Looks like you've got a lot of new friends." Or perhaps, "Who's keeping you so busy these days?" You may be tempted to immediately explain yourself. Don't. You don't need to give a defensive presentation about your schedule. You don't need to prove that there isn't another woman. And you don't need to convince her that you still care. A simple answer is enough. Something like, "I've just been focused on a few things lately." Then move on. Not because you're trying to keep her guessing, but because confident people don't feel obligated to explain every detail of their lives. Your life belongs to you, and the more comfortable you become with that reality, the less you need someone else to approve of it. 5. The consistency test. This is where your real character gets tested. If you change your behavior for 3 days just to make her react, you've learned nothing. The moment she gives you attention, you'll fall back into the old pattern. Real change is consistent. And sometimes, after you pull back, the other person may respond unpredictably. She may become warm one day and distant the next. She may reply quickly and then disappear. She may show interest and then become cold. This can be confusing. But don't let another person's mood control yours. If she's warm, you can be warm. If she's distant, give her space. You don't need to chase. You don't need to demand explanations. You don't need to ask, "Why are you ignoring me? Did I do something? Are you talking to someone else?" The strongest response is often simply continuing with your day, because your emotional stability shouldn't depend on another person's texting speed. 6. Stop riding the emotional roller coaster. One of the biggest signs of emotional dependence is allowing someone else's behavior to determine your mood. If she texts, you're happy. If she doesn't, you're anxious. If she compliments you, you feel confident. If she becomes distant, you question your worth. That's a roller coaster. And you don't have to live on it. You can care about someone without surrendering control of your emotional state to them. This is where emotional discipline becomes incredibly powerful. You remain the same person, calm, respectful, focused, grounded. Her attention doesn't make you arrogant. Her distance doesn't make you desperate. Her approval doesn't define you. Her rejection doesn't destroy you. You remain centered. That kind of stability is far more valuable than any dating trick. 7. The why him phase. Eventually, when someone is no longer able to predict your behavior, they may start looking at you differently. Before, you were the man who pursued. Now, you're the man who has his own direction. Before, your attention was automatic. Now, you give attention intentionally. Before, you were trying to prove your value. Now, you're simply living according to your values. That can create a completely different perception. She may begin wondering, what changed in him? And the answer should not be some complicated strategy. You changed your priorities. You stopped putting someone else above yourself. You stopped asking for validation. You started building a life that doesn't depend on romantic attention. And that's important, because you don't want her curiosity to become another source of validation for you. If you become obsessed with whether she's curious, you're still emotionally dependent. The real goal is to reach a point where her curiosity doesn't matter. 8. Respect comes before lasting attraction. Attraction without respect can become unstable, and respect isn't something you demand. It's something you demonstrate through your behavior. When you have standards, people learn how to interact with you. When you have boundaries, people understand what you will and won't accept. When you value your time, you become more selective about where you spend it. That doesn't mean becoming arrogant. It doesn't mean believing you're better than women. It simply means understanding that your time has value. If someone consistently cancels on you, you don't need to beg them to respect your schedule. If someone only contacts you when they're bored, you don't have to remain permanently available. If someone repeatedly gives you mixed signals, you don't have to spend months trying to decode them. You can simply step back. That's not punishment. That's self-respect. 9. Lead your own life. This is ultimately what the entire concept comes down to. You need to become the leader of your own life, not the leader of her emotions, not the controller of her behavior, not someone trying to manipulate her into chasing you. You control yourself, your decisions, your schedule, your goals, your standards, your response to rejection, your response to attention, your emotional discipline. That's where your real power lives. When you're constantly reacting to her behavior, she indirectly controls your emotional state. But when you remain centered, you stop living reactively. You become intentional, and that changes how you experience dating. Instead of thinking, how can I make her like me? You start asking, do I actually like the way she treats me? That's a completely different question, and it puts you back in control of your own decisions. 10. Don't become indifferent to people. Become indifferent to validation. This distinction matters. You don't want to become cold. You don't want to stop caring. You don't want to treat women like they're disposable. And you don't want to use silence as a weapon. The goal is not indifference toward people. The goal is indifference toward validation. You can still be kind. You can still communicate. You can still show affection. You can still make someone feel special. But you do it because that's who you are, not because you're terrified they'll leave if you stop. That's real confidence. You give without begging. You love without losing yourself. You care without becoming dependent. And you walk away when the relationship repeatedly violates your standards. The final shift. At the beginning of this journey, you may think you're trying to change the way she sees you. But eventually, you realize the bigger transformation is happening inside you. You stop checking whether she noticed your absence. You stop wondering whether she misses you. You stop analyzing every message. You stop comparing yourself to other men. You stop trying to manufacture jealousy. You stop trying to control the outcome, and you start living. That's when indifference becomes powerful. Not because it makes her chase you, but because it frees you from chasing anyone. Maybe she becomes more interested. Maybe she doesn't. Maybe she reaches out. Maybe she doesn't. Maybe the relationship develops into something meaningful. Maybe you eventually discover someone else who appreciates you naturally. Either way, your value remains unchanged. Because your value was never determined by how quickly someone replied to your message. It was never determined by whether someone chose you. And it was never determined by whether someone regretted losing you. Your value is reflected in your character, your discipline, your standards, your ability to walk away from what doesn't serve you, and your ability to remain peaceful when you cannot control the outcome. So stop trying to become the man she cannot live without. Become the man who can live a meaningful life whether she stays or leaves. Stop chasing attention. Build a life that deserves your attention. Stop begging for respect. Carry yourself in a way that naturally communicates your standards. Stop trying to control her emotions. Master your own. And stop asking, how do I make her want me? Start asking, am I living in a way that makes me proud of myself? Because when you can honestly answer yes, something changes. You no longer need to manipulate attraction. You no longer need fake mystery. You no longer need jealousy games. You no longer need to prove your worth. You simply become a man with direction, a man with standards, a man with purpose, a man who gives attention by choice rather than desperation. And that is the real power of indifference. Not making her chase you. Making sure you never have to chase someone who doesn't genuinely value having you in their life. If this message connected with you, don't forget to like this video, share it with someone who needs to hear it, and subscribe to my channel for more powerful insights on female psychology, relationships, confidence, and self-mastery. And remember, you don't become more valuable by making someone want you. You become more valuable by refusing to abandon yourself just to be wanted.